or today, but stuff that broke yesterday. Apparently, and it's official, Brian Flores has sued the NFL and has sued NFL teams. Now, this is a big deal because, if you go head to head with the NFL, that's, you're asking for it. You're also making somewhat of a career move because the NFL will also make sure that you never work again if things go sideways, right? So there's definitely a lot of interchangeable parts. Yesterday within Shop Sports, the Facebook group, there was a lot of I'm here for the comments. We're all going to find out who's on whose side. There's not many sides to take here, man. It's what broke yesterday is that he's suing because of the Bill Belichick leaked thing put him over the edge. That's what apparently, according to Mike Greenberg today on ESPN's Get Up, that's what intrigued Flores to say, you know what, I got to take a stand here.
I think that might have been the tipping point, but this is obviously
it's been
brewing for a while.
Yes.
His lawyers had all the information dating back to 2019, and they had it lined up in a timeline. So this wasn't something that just took place this week where they were like, you know what, this has been happening. And I know we talked about the NFL statement, or we haven't yet, but we talked about it about the NFL basically coming out and saying that, we reviewed the thing and there's no merit. Or what would they say exactly?
Yeah, well, that was their closing, their last, we're not going to dispute this, which has no merit. And the only thing I could say is they put out a statement within a couple hours. It took them days to put out a statement about deflated footballs. You didn't orchestrate this very well, NFL. You went out there and said, oh, no, it's not true. It's not true. We're just going to put end racism on the back of our helmets and we'll solve everything just like that. Or we might even spray paint it in the end zone. That's cool.
Well, yeah.
That'll change everything.
I think that maybe Flores is a nut job, right? And maybe he's a hothead and all these things. But look, the fact is the Rooney Rule has been in place for I don't know how long.
2003.
It's that late?
That late. 2003, the Rooney Rule was put into place.
The Rooney Rule,
and people, we got to educate the people in case you don't know. The Rooney Rule was put in place in the NFL to make sure that the NFL organizations, when doing their front office searches, meaning their head coach, their GMs, all that stuff, there has to be two minority candidates interviewed. Okay, so it's not just one, it's two. So the NFL put this in place, and while it seemed like a good idea at the time, because again, you're trying to get more black head coaches and more black GMs. And for God's sakes, there's not one black owner right now. There's not one. So, but pause on that when the Broncos are officially up for sale as of yesterday. So we'll see. If you have the money, pony up. I'm talking celebrities and whoever else. They can pony up and do a pool. The Broncos have a chance to be bought by a black guy.
It's not like you could just go buy a team. You have to be approved. There's a lot of
bureaucratic
tape right. to cut through.
Yeah, of course.
In terms of becoming an NFL owner.
But just so you know, so the rule was in place 2003. The rule was, again, when it happened, it was a very good idea to try to implement.
It wasn't. Here's what it was. It was tape.
At the time, I'm saying
it was Band-Aid on something that was
correct. So at the time, it was a good idea.
It seemed like a good idea.
It seemed like a good idea at the time.
In terms of what it's like, it was a PR stunt. The same way end racism on the back of helmets and equality in the end zones and all this bullshit that they do right now. But then the proof isn't in the pudding. You see black head coaches being fired. Brian Flores. Look, there was a lot that went into this whole thing with the Dolphins. So I'm not going to sit here and point to the sole issue of him being black is why he was fired, because he was in fact hired to begin with. But when you hire a black head coach and then you're expecting him to lose games on purpose, that affects his future employment. That affects things. That's the biggest, most egregious thing. Now, obviously, Brian Flores, when it comes to the Tua situation, him putting in Tua and then putting in Fitzpatrick late in games, this dates back. You think there was a lot of things happening that year.
We're all like, why?
The Dolphins traded away everybody. It was very apparent that their front office was in tank mode, which I think it was obvious.
2019, obviously.
Very similar to the way the Texans looked this year, I might add.
Yes.
Also fired a black head coach.
Yes.
Now, but the Texans also have history of that to begin with. So the Dolphins and Flores situation dates back to 2019 where they were selling off everybody, but he was still going out there and winning football games. He actually knocked me out of my survivor pool against the Colts that year.
So,
right?
Yeah, you got more. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, look, but yeah, the whole fact is at this point, him falling on the sword whether he was right or wrong and why he was released from Miami or fired from Miami, him falling on the sword and getting rid of what I think is one of the worst things in football is the Rooney Rule, because it's embarrassing.
You think they're going to get rid of it?
I think they need to get rid of it. I think ultimately the change needs to happen. The Rooney Rule isn't getting people hired. It's actually putting them in a position where you have to go sit in an interview where you know you're not an actual candidate for a job.
And that leads me to the next point of the actual Giants debacle. So the Giants are in some hot water right now because the text message from Bill Belichick to Brian Flores was intended for Brian Dable, right? So originally he said, hey, the Giants got their guy. You're the guy. Congratulations. What?
All seriousness aside, that was a legendary text exchange.
Oh, by the way,
Belichick.
the closing arguments was fantastic. But anyway, like his closing line was money in our bank pocket.
Sorry,
okay?
I fucked this up.
Yeah, exactly. And I haven't heard from him since.
BB.
So that's what happened. So he obviously he told Brian Flores, who we thought he was talking to Brian Dable, hey, listen, I talked to my guys at Buffalo in New York. You're the guy. And Brian Flores was like, Buffalo, what the fuck? Hey, coach, you sure you're talking to me? My interview's not till Thursday. And he's like, I fucked up. They're going with Dable. Have a good day. And then just like, like right out the window. So basically what that literally means is the Giants chose their guy and had a lame duck interview scheduled 2 days later. They chose a guy on a Tuesday. They had an interview lined up on a Thursday with a black head coach because it fit the Rooney Rule.
Now there's also rumors that they did also interview one of their coordinators who was black prior to this. But that's only one, so you need to have two. One. But then they also, Kyle is saying that they interviewed Dan Quinn after that fact too. So was his a sham interview as well? Maybe they just really hadn't come up with a decision. They were like, all right, you set up 10 interviews, you interview 6 guys, right? Well, and you're like, all right, the 6th guy I really like, but we don't want to not see this process through. So you interview the final 4 guys. It makes sense. But
I was bringing this up yesterday when we were talking about this, and I said, if I have an interview, let's just say arbitrarily, Anthony, you, and Dina are up for the next GM position of the Dolphins, right? And Anthony blows me away, and I'm like, whoa! Like I've never met a guy that good at what he does, and that smart, and that educated, and that energetic. I don't care who's next. That's our guy. But it just so happens that Chris is a black man all of a sudden. Not all of a sudden, but you know what I'm saying? Like arbitrarily, a black guy is next in line.
Anti-Sammy Sosa.
Yeah, right. A black guy's next in line. He's not going to get that. He's not even going to get a fair shake. So that's exactly what happened. And then forget Dina. She's a woman in the workplace. That ain't happening. You know what I mean? Like all of a sudden, they're blown away. Is that wrong of somebody to be blown away in interview 1? That's where we're at.
No,
that's what I'm curious about. What
and like, there's interesting
think.
Points that we could raise about the Jim Harbaugh situation, where it's like if you have a guy that you're coveting, and it's like with a famous actor, let's say Leonardo DiCaprio, he doesn't audition for roles. He gets offered them. So if you have a guy in mind, let's just say the Vikings, which we'll get to later, and they're like handpicking, like we want Jim Harbaugh to be the guy, and they know that before they even interview anybody, then they have to go and do interviews. It's very stupid, and I think that's why you're going to see the rule abolished, because the rule itself is actually now I'm seeing in the comments, which we're not going to bring them up, about all the people saying other people have had lame duck interviews. Agreed. Understand all that, but they didn't have lame duck interviews because of a stupid rule that's put in place that's supposed to actually fix the problem, but in turn it's actually highlighting the problem even more.
Well, you bring that up, and we brought up the Giants interview, but this happened too, according to Flores today on Get Up on ESPN. He said, look, I walked into my interview with the Broncos, and Elway and everybody, all the decision makers were hammered. Hungover.
I don't think Flores has an issue necessarily with the teams, because the teams are basically just adhering to a rule so they don't get in trouble. So if you're the Giants or either Broncos and you have your guy, you have no choice. First of all, shame on Flores for thinking that John Elway's ever not hungover or drunk, because he's always hungover and he's always drunk.
Fair.
And I do want to say this. The Giants don't have exactly the best history in terms of race relations in the NFL. They're like the last to do everything. I think the only black quarterback they've ever had was when they had Geno Smith start over Eli. So even that was a fucking debacle for the Giants. But Mara and Tish, they've traditionally been looked at as like the last to do something.
Very true.
Very largely a reason why there is a Rooney Rule in the first place.
So basically what you're saying is you think Flores is not fighting for specific thing. You think he's just like, hey, this needs to stop.
He
Like, I'm
understands-
tired of it. Because
and
look,
I also-
just so you know, he's still a finalist for the Saints and the
Exactly.
Texans.
I also don't think that Brian Flores sealed his fate on coaching in this league ever again. I think he will coach in this league again. I think what you're seeing is him being in a situation now where it's like we dealt with the Kaepernick situation. I understand people are going to draw comparisons there.
Mhm.
I think it's a little bit different here.
It is different.
I think it's a little bit different. I don't think that he's going to be out there on Sundays actively trying to show anybody up. If he gets his job,
Just buying tickets.
I
showing
think
up
what's
to
going to end up
home games.
what's going to end up happening is you're not going to see him on the sideline on a Sunday of week 1. Say he's head coach of a team. You're not going to see him do anything outlandish. Like he's
Right.
literally fighting for rights and he's fighting for change. Whether you agree with what he's fighting for or what happened with organizations or if it's your team that he's outing, I don't think he's pointing his finger at a team individually. Maybe the Dolphins, but he's really pointing out how the system is broken. And
Right.
it has been for a while.
And just to boot, like he went off his last couple words to Mike Greenberg was, you know, I may never coach. Like he was like, Greenberg was like, do you want to coach in this league? He goes, absolutely. But he understands what's going on right now. He understands the level of magnitude this might bring to the league as far as a nasty stamp on the league. Remember, we're like not too far away from guys that are thinking about like boycotting and not playing and all that other shit. Remember, the NBA did it. They canceled games. Like there's a lot of shit. Look, do I think they're going to boycott the Super Bowl? No, that game's going to be played, right? Like that's not a thing. But what I'm saying is, he knows the ramifications about this, and he's well aware of it. And he's actually saying, like,
I'm
fuck
seeing
it, I don't
things,
care.
I'm seeing things
If
that,
I could change it, let's change
that
it.
oh, he's in for a payday. I don't think that's even remotely close to the case. If he was just in for a payday, I had a good idea. Except that $100K per game that they're offering you to lose.
Right.
What would you do? Like, if honestly, I could list a bunch of crazy things in life that I would do for $100,000. Losing an NFL game is definitely on that list. All right.
Dude,
$100K per.
I can't believe
With this roster,
right. It's like,
done deal,
I
bro.
can't believe that that's an actual factual thing. He doubled down on it today. Like that was a thing. He was being offered $100,000 to tank. And I talked to my boy Keith Ernst, who's on the Jersey Boys podcast with me. He said it from Jump Street. He said, players never tank. It's never the players. The players are going out there and they're giving it their all because it's a violent sport. You can't tank. Not football, at least, right?
Bro, jobs are on the
owners.
line. Careers are on the line. It's a league where if you don't perform well, you don't have a job
So
anymore.
now you have
You're gonna go out
this,
there and purposely lose.
you
It's
have
crazy.
what's his name? Stephen Ross.
Yeah.
Stephen Ross, the owner of the Dolphins.
Sounds like a wrestling manager.
Stephen Ross.
Yeah. Is that Jim Ross? Is he?
That's
now?
Jim
Yeah, all
Ross.
right.
Yeah.
Same shit.
Sounds like Jerry Jones. I got everybody. Everybody's got the same Southern twang. No, but in all seriousness, like what he's done, and I lost my train of thought because I'm just going off on a tangent here.
Stephen Ross.
Stephen Ross. So what he did, and this was confirmed by Flores. And look, again, two sides to everything. You can't believe everything you hear, but in his sincerity in his voice, you know, Stephen Ross offered him $100,000, and Flores said, "I'm sorry, that's not in my DNA. I can't do it.
Well,
I
it's
can't
like-
lose games
like,
on purpose."
You can't do that because, like I said in the very beginning, you're offered money to lose. So you get a little bit of a money up front, but then you sabotage your own future as a coach in the league because who's going to hire a coach that doesn't have success in the NFL? It's like, oh, I was 3-13 here. Unless you're Mike McCarthy, you don't get a job off of failure.